This conference will now be recorded.
There we go. Yeah, I think this will be a better format because I found myself repeating the same demo over and over again. Like I'll go through everyone's work, but it's easier than me doing the same demo. I did it like 9 times and I was like, okay, this is just really stupid. We should just let's just meet in one session. All right. Awesome. So Mandrant, I don't know if you're here right now. If you are, feel free to announce yourself. That'd be really cool. Um, if you're not here, don't worry about it. Uh, I think your flour sacks are looking really good. You did a great job of capturing a lot of different poses. I definitely feel the squash and stretch there. Um, Exciting amount of movement. I like this little hoppy guy right there. It's looking good. One thing you can do as well, this is just occurring to me, is you can make these asymmetrical. So I think whenever a pose is asymmetrical, it can be a little bit more interesting. You could have one of these reaching up, making that like slightly tilted, right? Essentially what we're trying to emulate here when we're doing the flour sack is just the shoulder line and the hip line. It's just we're doing it in a silly little flour sack version so that it's easier. One habit I kind of want you to get into is to be a little bit more clear about the silhouettes. It's not that your drawings aren't clear, it's just a lot of times whenever I see a line and then there's like a space and this kind of thing, um, you're asking me to fill in the gaps about the silhouette. And to me, that doesn't feel super confident. I'd rather you just go in, use a couple lines, fill out that gap so I know exactly what's happening. Now, when I make that critique, or the reason why I'm making that critique, unfinished lines can be a really interesting illustrative technique that you use. And there's a lot of really great artists that will use it. So I don't want to be here and be like, oh, never not finish your silhouettes. There are countless examples of where that's cool. I think for animation, most of the time you want your silhouette to be very clear. So if you're leaving gaps, you're not really fully establishing what I'm supposed to know about. The other thing that I want to talk about, which is a pretty minor critique, but will apply to what we just talked about yesterday in our third class, is some of the shape design. So you're kind of rounding out everything, which is, understandable. We're doing a flour sack, but I do think there's some areas like even these little folds. I'll sometimes, I'll sometimes draw that where I'll make the fold a little bit more triangular. So we can do a little shape design there. Also, the corners and maybe the base of the flour sack, which is contacting the ground, I'll make those flatter and more square. That way it feels like there's a little bit of shape contrast. So just a little shape design elements. Um, it's nothing too crazy, right? That's really mostly just stylistic critiques. You're really getting the concept of squash and stretch. It looks great. So keep doing that. Looking quite epic. I think you did this as a video or, oh no. Awesome. Yeah, I actually have the same comment here about the shape design stuff. You are definitely starting to implement more sharper shapes. Love to see it. It's looking great. Awesome. Cool. Yeah, you did a really solid job here. Your shapes are changing between the poses a little bit, right? You see if we look at the leg shapes, you can see they start to become more convex and a little bit rounder. You want to try to keep those shapes consistent, partially because that's like one of the main things in animation is maintaining those inflection points on the shape. So if you start it out, right, if we go to our neutral pose, where was the first one? Okay, we go to our neutral pose. These shapes are a little less convex and they got more convex as you were crouching. Kind of makes sense. I'm giving you slight contradictory information because I did mention squash and stretch, but this thigh shape is not really squashing all that much, right? If you're going to squash anything, it would be like the calf right there. But the only thing that's really getting squashed is the stomach. So you could add a little bit of squash there. It's up to you. And that's animators or people that were in the animation class will recall that I talked about this squash and stretch thing. You can really apply as much or as little as you want, um, and that's a stylistic preference, right? The more you squash, the sort of zanier, more cartoony it's going to look. Um, as far as the rest of this, the only thing I'm doing here really is you just have this little bump there, which I'm going to get rid of just because the rib cage doesn't really have all that much squash and stretch. But other than that, you did a great job. This looks really good. Your 3D forms are looking solid. Um, shape design wise, I think a little bit more asymmetry in the legs would be more interesting. We looked at some artists like Il Kwang Kim who do. I'll copy his leg shape for a second. So we get this sort of zigzagging effect, and I really, really like that. You don't have to take that exact shape design, but what I like about this is the inflection point on the right side is higher up than on the left, so there's a little asymmetry there, and then it curves in and gets thinner down by the ankle, which is a bonier part of the of the of the leg. You could add the ankle bones themselves, or you can kind of just taper down into it. I really like when legs, uh, the shapes for the legs just taper down like a crazy amount and then get wider again for the feet. That's just a personal preference. I'm into it. I think it's cool. It's very dynamic. Um, and, again, that's more preference based. You can kind of choose what you want to do. Epic. All right. So this is just the same thing, just laid out there. Cool. All right. Rain Man. I looked at this one before, and I think I have similar comments. We're going to talk probably most in detail about that one. Yeah, similar comment. So the tendency is to use a single line. Also, you can turn on your microphone if you want to. Don't worry, I don't bite. Similar comment, right? Don't be too shy with these lines. Like feel free to dig in, carve into that. Show me what the silhouette is doing, right? Because like if you just do one line, it's kind of hard for me to tell what's happening. Also, it affects the tempo with which you draw. Like, right, if I like when I'm going in for my first rough pass, I draw pretty quickly just because I like that. It feels like a direct connection from my brain to the paper, and you can loosen up. There's nothing. You don't have to hit those lines perfectly. Now, if you are going for a cleanup pass, I do really slow down a ton. But then in that case, I have a little bit more information to work with, and I can be careful about those lines and be a little more specific about how I want to go into cleaning up those lines. I talked a little bit about line work yesterday. I'll continue to talk about that more as we progress. A lot of animation styles just use like I'm looking at this one piece animation. It's really just the same line weight all the way through. But even then, there's like areas where we add hatches and that kind of stuff. Sick animation also. Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth. Cool, cool, good stuff. Love to see it. If it isn't Mr. Noah doing his angry stuff. Cool. I'm trying to see if I see any issues. This looks pretty solid to me. Seems like you got it down. No problems there. You got the shoulder tilt, hip tilt. Great. Yeah, it looks like that all works. You have any questions about this? Actually seems like most of the class is doing the 3D forms really well. I was
Hello.
thinking,
Oh,
hey, what's up, buddy?
No, I don't have any questions about the black thing.
All right, cool. Yeah, you did a great job. Like I said, I was surprised. It seems like nobody in the class has any issues with I mean, not nobody, but it seems like most of the class is doing the 3D part really well. Cool. All right. One comment here, which I have the same problem. Whenever you draw something in perfect front view, right, it can be annoying to keep it symmetrical on either side.
Yeah.
I flip it around a little bit just because I think you just chopped off the right half a little bit. It's not a big deal. Let me zoom in just a tad. That's why I always like drawing in 3/4. One critique I have about myself in this demo that I did, I think I could have pushed the lean, like this one in particular. Sometimes you got to critique yourself. I think I could have pushed the gesture of that lean over a little more. Wasn't using any reference, which is kind of a bad call. Sometimes it's good to use reference. So I want to push that gesture over slider, swipe it. And just like we were talking about in class, you can take that gesture line and then use that as the foundation for your character model. I'm actually not going to add the squashing. Right? Sometimes it's nice to even use a simpler character model than what we have there. Just a rectangle that's bent. But I mean, that's not really a critique. That's just more of a comment about something you can do. Other than that, I think same comment of be a little bit less conservative with the line work. I think that would help, because I could be wrong, but I think when I see really tight line work, I feel like you're not allowing yourself to loosen up and you know, fully express the pose. This happens to everybody. It happened to me for the longest time. I was so conservative with the line work because when you see final products, like when you see this drawing, you're like, oh, those lines are really tight. But even looking there's a lot of scratchy lines. Like, and this is the final line work for the animation, right? There's just like some lines in there that are scratchy. So don't feel like you've got to have it perfect. In fact, if there's some mistakes, it looks better because it feels like a human being drew it as opposed to some sort of robot alien hybrid combo thing. Cool. All right, this one I want to talk about because there's some principles we can do to make foreshortening work better. It's the same sort of deal, right? When we have a cylinder, when we're looking at it in side view, we're not getting any foreshortening. But when we look at it in a front view, we get a lot of foreshortening. And so the visual length of the cylinder is much shorter, and there's a lot of overlap because the front face of that cylinder overlaps it. So when you do something like this, you have the hand really big. You can achieve that effect with a fisheye lens, but I think it would be a little more believable if the hand was overlapping, like if you have the hand overlapping the arm and the shoulder. Just doing a really shitty drawing. So just add a little bit more overlap. We can do some practice with that after, because that's a terrible demo. The other thing that juts out at me, you've got foot placement, right? Look at this foot. Now you've told me the ground is perfectly flat, which means to me that the horizon line is here, when everything else you're telling me the horizon line is like way far away. So let me show you a little bit about this. So this foot back here makes the most sense, right? Because we've got this diagonal between the feet, right? That all makes sense to me. Cool. That, we're seeing the top plane of the foot. That all registers. But now here's a gestural issue, right? Where's the center of gravity? Well, if I took a light and I casted it directly down on this guy, his whole body would be all the way back here. Whereas if we want him to lean back slightly, we'd probably get something, let's erase that. We'd probably get way more overlap, right? His head would be here. His shoulders would be overlapping his head. And those feet, yeah, they got a taper. Okay, so what did I do? Well, look at that ellipse on the ab or on the pelvis, right? That should be vertical. We're looking down at this guy. So instead of having that ellipse for the abs be pointed back like this, we've got to be looking down at it. It's got to be almost a perfect circle. Then I shrunk the gap between the rib cage and the pelvis, right? Because the rib cage should be overlapping the pelvis a little bit. So that's something. And I made the head overlap the shoulders even more. The other thing, I made the feet, or I made the legs and the feet much smaller, right? In general, it should sort of just, everything should sort of taper down gradually, right? And then the closer it gets to the camera, it just gets taller, or it just gets wider and wider. This is one of the harder types of poses to get. Use a lot of reference. I don't know if the pose was from reference. I have a feeling I've seen the reference it's from. I'd repeat that one again. Keep trying. These ones are annoying. It takes a really, really long time to get comfortable with that. It's a pain in the butt. I think we're getting a similar thing here where I feel like the foot placement might be a little bit flatter, or sorry, a little bit too flat, right? You're drawing it as if you're drawing it like this, where this is the left, this is the front, and I kind of want to see top, left, and then the front, because we're looking down at that. And then once again, we kind of have this gestural issue where all the weight is distributed over to the right and the character is going to fall over. So just be careful with that. I tried that again. Gets pretty tricky once we're doing gestures in 3 dimensions, because now you've got to kind of track where that fits in space. One thing I do, if you ever see those, like when you get like a model kit, there's like little lines that go straight up in the pieces, and kind of like, or if a model is suspended, it's kind of like this, where there's little pieces of plastic that hold it up. If you do that and then you find that the entire weight of your model, so to speak, is all shifted in one direction, like in this case, it's all to the right, that character is going to fall over. Yeah, and same thing here. We've got too much back tilt, right? This pelvis, remember, it's got to counterbalance. The pelvis has got to counterbalance the rib cage. So if the ribs are going back, pelvis has got to balance that shit out. And the further you pull that rib cage back, the further forward that pelvis is going to go. But I do think that's the most successful one in terms of the foreshortening. All right, awesome. And one quick comment, because hands are impossible. 1 second, let me pull up my reference board. I love these shapes. Super asymmetrical shapes there on the fingertips. All right, and he breaks the finger down just into 2 sections. So it's just the main length of the finger and then the tip of the finger. So I found once I started drawing them that way, it made it way easier to understand. So just a little word to the wise. Awesome. Where are we at now?
Thank you.
No problem, dude. Great work. Wait, did more stuff just pop up? Oh, okay, this is, okay, cool. I started from the middle of it, it seems like. Oh, I missed this one too. Or did I? Wait. Oh yeah, that was from Mandarin before. I missed these ones. Okay, yeah, these look pretty solid. I like the shape design on that face. Cool. Yeah, keep doing these foreshortened poses with some reference. Keep working on the shape design. Like that you're starting a little bit looser there. That's all good. We love to see it. And yeah, a little bit in terms of just shape dynamics. I'm going to keep talking about this, but that shape you're using for the forearm there, right? It's just 2 shapes that are the exact same slope on both sides, and then they just come to an end, right? One of the reasons why I like the shape that I use is it's asymmetrical, and it gets thinner towards the bony part of the hand, which is here at the latter part of the forearm. Sorry, at the bony part of the forearm. And then like a triangle up here for the elbow or something like that. It changes, you know, sometimes I will just use a really dull version of this where you just round out the curves and almost make it like a rectangle. But you got to play around with shapes. But yeah, anytime you find this almonding effect where the shapes are the exact same slope on both sides, you fucked up. Nah, you didn't fuck up. It's just they're not interesting in terms of the shapes. And we can make it cooler. You're starting to do it there with the eyes and the face design. It's looking good. All right, what is this? What do we got there? Awesome. We've got the bent flour sack rotating in 3D space. We love to see it. It's so sad. It's so depressing. Oh, it's so depressing. Awesome. What do we have to say here? Be careful just about the balance of this, right? I know it's just a flour sack, but same thing, center of gravity. We might want to move the feet back slightly so it really feels like it captures that weight. Nice job emphasizing the gesture, though. It really feels depressed. Center of gravity is so hard. Yeah, it is really one of the more difficult things to get down. Let's go to the 3/4 view. Yeah. So look where your horizon line is, or I don't know if that's your horizon line or your floor line, but don't do too much diagonal if your floor is right there, or if that's your horizon line. So let's just keep it a little bit closer in. Also, I'm just moving the feet. I'm changing the angles of the feet, right? People don't normally stand with their feet perfectly in line. Usually a more casual posture will be one foot's one way, the other's sort of coming towards the camera. You'll see that all the time. Also, this is just a thing that I like to do, but these contour lines. So if we have a shape, and then I've got lines that are touching two planes of an object, so that would be that line there. I make those thinner than I make silhouettes, and then I make lines that would be in shadow. So that's kind of just a rule of thumb for me. The other thing is, I think it's a little less square on the edges, right? Let's try to not use as much, you know, of this contour line here, because that makes it feel less like it's a sack and more like a foam cutout or something. Cool. And I like changing up some of the shapes in the center there just because it feels like a good area to play around with different types of shapes. Maybe this fold doesn't go all the way to the edge of the silhouette, it just goes in the center. Folds, cloth week. That will, I mean, it's not cloth week right now, but it will happen. It will happen. Okay. Mannequins. Looking good. Perfect. No issues here. Everyone's ellipses are so good. It makes me so happy. I love to see it. I thought I was going to have to spend so much time on ellipses, and everybody seems to be getting it. That's great. It's good stuff. Not sure if WhatsApp has more. Looks like it. Okay, we'll move on. Great work. Yeah, it's honestly, everyone's doing so good. It's crazy. And you couldn't do it without the world's best teacher. No, I'm kidding. Y'all are doing just fine.
Yes, Ethan Becker.
No, he never talked about Boxman at all. Get the fuck out of here.
It's true.
He's too scared to talk about Boxman. He's too
Don't
scared.
you ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's too scared to get into the nitty gritty. Now everyone on YouTube's just creating art drama. They're too scared to teach the real stuff.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. All right. These are always tough. The inclination is to not allow things to overlap. So just, I think you could let this pelvis overlap, or the rib cage overlap the pelvis a little bit more. Yeah, and RJ, everything is all about fixing art right now, and I don't like it. I am morally opposed to it, even though I am quite literally doing that to you guys. But I think it's different when the person didn't ask for it. The other thing, I'm not sure if the head direction was tilted up. So technically you're not wrong, like if this guy was looking up into the air, but if the head direction is supposed to be the same as this guy, we'd be seeing the top plane of the head. So it's not wrong. It's just you tilted his head up, which is arguably more interesting. So maybe you did the right thing. For the arms and the legs, be sure that those ellipses are nice and circular, because we're looking down at those. We're looking down at them. We're scoffing at them. Look at those peasant ellipses. Those plebeian ellipses. Okay. Let's see. Same sort of thing about finish these silhouettes. Remember what I said at the beginning of the class. I said I wanted strong silhouettes. I didn't want wimpy silhouettes that have been skipping leg day. I want strong silhouettes. Give me the full thing. For the most part, you're doing that, but some of these areas you're skipping out on the lines. Anytime we get folds, I'm going to show you some cool art that I'm inspired by really fast. We are fully in control of what shapes we use for things like cloth folds. I like to exaggerate the size of them. I'm going to try to pull up Il Kwang Kim. It's not necessarily a fold per se, but the amount like this cloth, like if you look at her shoes, the amount that it breaks the silhouette is super interesting to me. And so you'll see this all over with shape design. People will really, really exaggerate the scale and how much a fold breaks the silhouette. I like to make any clothing folds sharper and break the silhouette. So for example, we can do, rather than on this flour sack, you've got sort of a round shape, another round shape, and then another round shape. We can change that up. So for the base, which is contacting the ground, we'll make it a little bit more square. I'm going to use a triangle for this fold. And then I'll add some tapering, right? There's less flour up here at the top. It is a flour sack after all. So I'm going to make that a little bit thinner and more tapered. All right, so it's a little bit of nuance using a flat line there at the base because that's contacting the ground. It's making contact with the earth. Should be flat. And even I made not a mistake necessarily, but something I don't like, which is I made these two lines parallel. Let's not do that. Let's make that a little more exciting. Maybe add another line. Nice, strong silhouettes, right? If I was gonna hire somebody to ink over this, they know what line to ink over. They're not gonna have any confusion about it. So, and you're breaking the silhouettes in a lot of these areas. So that's great. I think we can push that to a little bit of that extra fold. You'd be surprised. It's crazy how much shape stuff you can learn just from flour sacks. Yeah, I think for the most part, the shape dynamic stuff is really where I would push it, because having that disparity of shape design, right? Like it's hard for me to tell which side has more weight to it, right? Like if I give you a square or a trapezoid, sorry, I forgot shapes for a second, right? The trapezoid has more dynamics because the bottom is sturdier than the top, right? If I put the trapezoid upside down like this, it feels like if you push it, it could kind of, or if you like put a little pressure on it, it would wobble. Whereas the other way, it's very sturdy. So shapes have, they have emotional feelings to them, or they convey some sense to them. So you want to use shapes to give information. So that's why I used a more trapezoidal shape down towards the base, show that that's sturdy, it's not going anywhere. And then a flatter shape towards the top. Cool. You're doing a great job of emphasizing the gesture though. Appreciate that. Love to see it. We got level 2. That's looking good as well. Again, I'm going to give you a critique that I would give myself the critique from this, which is actually we're getting a little bit of tilt here, which is fine, right? You can add a little bit of that perspective. I did shoot it with a long lens, or when I did it where the legs were flat. But the thing we want to watch out for, because you did change the perspective, because now you added an angle between these legs, you've got to be careful about that center of gravity now. Right, so now the weight is too far back, and this leg would need to be a little bit tighter in. I might have also fucked that up when I was doing the drawing too, so sometimes that happens. But shifting that leg back just slightly would help. I try not to make a mistake as a teacher, but you know, it can't be avoided sometimes. We're not perfect. Cool. Oh yeah, and then the profile view. Yeah, I did miss a few. I know there's people lower. I'm gonna get to those. I started higher up. In the profile view, see how everything you have is going back at a diagonal. Those legs have to, the gesture of them have to brace the weight a little bit. So watch this gesture that I'm doing. I might even put those legs back a little bit further to capture that gesture. We did do some people before. Nikita, there's a couple people that we went through. I don't believe we went through yours yet. But yeah, keep an eye on the gesture of this, right? You kind of just drew the legs going straight down. Again, not sure if I did that. I don't think I did. But also, you know, there's sometimes things get lost in translation. So if you do a gesture like this, and you got all that weight back, the feet placement's got to be back a little bit more to compensate for that. You could also put the arms up. It might make it feel a little bit more balanced, right? If you're falling backwards, your arms naturally go up a little bit, so that kind of holds you up in the air, changes your center of gravity. Other than that, though, it looks good. It looks like you got a pretty good sense of what's going on. Yeah, same with this one. Keep that center of gravity in a way that tries to maintain balance. And you know, if you want to really practice this, keep it loose. You can just keep this loose like that, because then you practice getting center of gravity and maintaining your body position, just all really, really loose. A little contrapposto, didn't do that on purpose, but right, you practice that and it's nice and loose and easy, and then you get used to balancing out the posture. Yeah, lots of stick figures. That's the prescription for that.
Oh, hello.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Good. Yeah.
Is this
Don't know what
Alex?
to say. Yeah.
What you should say is you did a good job. You should boast now. Now you have to flex literally on all of the other students. And let's see. I know you left some comments. Let's see. What gave you trouble is not having a deconstructed torso and head in my mind, so turning the 3D was difficult. I used cubes and cylinders. I think you'd do it better. Well, whatever you did worked. I don't think you needed them. In fact, I would suggest continuing to do it this way as opposed to using the cylinders and cubes if you don't have to, because this turned out fine. If that was a concern that you were messing up the perspective, it shouldn't be, because it looks great. The shapes, you lose them a little bit in, I think, some of these, like right there, but that's on this one. You got a question mark there. Here, let's talk about that one.
Yeah, the 3/4 was very difficult.
Yeah, well, let me do a little demo over that. But I mean, aside from that one little thing, you fucking crushed it, dude. It's
I
great.
feel like it got confusing because I'm doing like very long kind of camera view, long shot,
Mhm.
right? So it's like very flat, but then it's also 3/4. So then when it's like leaning back or leaning forward, I was like, wait, if I make him really lean back, it's gonna break the flat I'm trying to go for.
It doesn't necessarily. I'll show you an example, right? If they're, let's say this is a rectangle and we're shooting it with a long lens. If I rotate it back, the only thing you have to do is just on each plane, they just have to be the same slope. Whereas if I was doing this with a wider lens, we would get a variety of slopes. So these angles would be tapering.
I see.
Yeah, so the benefit of the long lens is it limits the amount of perspective craziness that you have to do. It makes it a little bit easier because you don't have to worry about all these tapering lines in space. So it's part of why I like starting with it. We will go into super dynamic perspectives, but yeah, I think like here, wait, let's go to where you have the head tilted forward. Okay, so instead of drawing the head in that shape, I'm going to do it as cylinders. So watch what I'm going to do. This is basically the angle that you have. Put some eyes. Wait, I'll give it ears so that's easier. Little tiny ears. And then when you go to here, wait, not there. When you go to there, look sort of like that. So your shape wouldn't be all that different. Right, so we're getting, it's just that the slope of these stay the same. And so if we do the head shape, right, so I'm using, you can see this ellipse there. I'm using that sort of as my guide. And yeah, let me pull up some 3D reference. I think that will help. Trigger warning, Speedos. Okay, we're gonna zoom out first because I always make this mistake. It's gonna zoom right in on the dick. This always happens. Okay, I gotta zoom out again. Okay, so basically what we're doing here is if we were holding a camera, we're walking like a football field away and we're strapping on our telephoto lens. So we're going like, we're getting our crazy wildlife photography lens on. And why that lowers the field of view is, I'll just draw this out real quick. We've got an object and we've got a camera right up next to it and one camera really far away. The camera that's next to the object has a wider angle of light that's got to go from the top and the bottom to the lens, whereas with the long lens, oops, let's get straight lines that are good. Nope, almost. Okay, see how much smaller that angle is? So all the light is basically just the same exact angle if an object's far away. So what happens as a result of that, I know this sounds like science class now, sorry. But what happens as a result of that phenomena, since all the light's kind of exactly at the same angle to the camera, now everything is coming at you at the same angle. So you can kind of just draw things in shape. So if his head was tilted forward, right? So that would sort of be the effect. We can change the field of view. Now we're gonna get really, really close up at this guy. I'm gonna zoom in. We're gonna like stand uncomfortably close to him, like we're some creepo that's just like right up next to him. Oop, oh, we're there we are. We're in at the penis. Okay. Uncomfortably close. So now if we've got whatever object that's here and the camera's like this big, well, now the angle that the light has to take is dramatically different. So that's how we get this more dynamic perspective. I like starting off doing the mannequin stuff with the long lens where it's far away, because then it's sort of easier to figure out how those forms work. Or at least that was my intent, was for it to be easier. I was not trying to confuse you.
For some odd reason, I get the feeling that like the normal lens almost looks easier, but I wouldn't know it until I try.
Yeah. So the long lens is the one where I pulled the camera all the way back. What I like about that is you can just have everything horizontal, and then all you have to worry about is your character's shapes. I would get this program though and mess around with it. It's a good idea. It will help you understand this concept a little bit more.
Yeah, I like how you can kind of do it almost infinitely, the field of view.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's like the best thing. Took me a really long time to understand this concept. So once I started dabbling with this, it blew my mind. Cool. All right, get off the screen now, guy. All right, well, anyway, you did a great job regardless. So yeah, there's not much to worry about other than that head shape. Basically, all that was happening was you started where it should have foreshortened, which you can show this foreshortening just by allowing the head to overlap. I think, okay, that's what was happening. That's the issue. I see the issue now.
I
Okay.
think I'm missing all that overlap, yeah.
You didn't want the body to overlap because you were like, hey, this makes me uncomfortable. And
I'm
that
exposed.
happens to literally everybody. I don't know why. I don't know why our brains don't want to do that. They're like, overlapping shapes, it can't be.
It has to all be there.
Yeah, so look what happens, right? You go to bend your character forward. The head could be all the way over here, but you moved it to the side because you felt the need to show the entire length of it. But imagine, I'm going back to cylinders. Imagine a cylinder's coming at us, right? Like that. And to show the long lens, rather than using super intense diagonals where the front circle is bigger than the back circle, it's really simple. I just do a circle and then two parallel lines and then another circle. If you photograph a cylinder with a long lens, that's what it looks like. It's just a cylinder, two horizontal lines, and that's it. So I think that's the main issue there. It's just let those shapes overlap, and that will allow you to get that.
Oh yeah, I asked before, but I'm not sure if I got the answer from you. It was like, I wanted to confirm if when you're doing like a cylinder, the ellipse that is farther in the back, like the degree of the ellipse, how big it is it always bigger than the one that's closer to you?
Well, if it's in the long lens, the degree is the exact same, just because it's, like I said, the change in the angle is less dramatic. I do believe that technically the one in the back would be more circular, but for the context of this, I don't think it makes that much of a difference.
Hmm.
Where it does sort of make a difference would be like if you're, doing all your Scott Roberts and stuff, right? He'll do like a horizontal cylinder where it's laying down like this. So our vanishing point is here, right? And the cylinder is laying on the ground. This ellipse that's closer to the right should be wider in degree than the one on the left. That would be that would make more sense. Like I'll do a better demo of that. Like this one, where our vanishing point might be like right here. So in this instance, the degree of the ellipse constantly gets bigger. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Yeah, but in the front to back, it's really like not that big of a deal. Because I mean, try to imagine this. Like if I have a cup in front of me and I'm looking at straight down the barrel of the cup, both of those just look circular. It's just one smaller than the other. It's just like
Yeah.
circle, circle. So it's like I don't really think the degree is bigger or smaller. It's just the size is smaller. All right, dude, great work.
All right, thank
I think
you.
that's everything. Yeah, there we go. Cool. All right, Brittany, I don't know if you're here, but welcome back. I hear a microphone. I hear a tingling of a microphone. All right, I'll take that as a you're here but don't want to talk. I like these guys. They came out great. I already like, or I like that you're just with the mannequin. You're playing around with the scale of these shapes. Like this guy already looks like he could be a character. Like if you just added some mech parts to him, he looks like he could be a character or something. Like if you just change up the details a little bit. So that's great. Love it. Like the pose, like that he's flexing, showing that he's a fucking buff boy. Cool stuff. Epic. This guy I take a little bit of issue with just because he looks like he doesn't know where he's supposed to be. So gesture wise, I think we should make the gesture a little bit more interesting, right? Because he's kind of just standing there a little bit stiff. Why is that? Well, we've got shoulders, hips at the same exact angle, which is never fun, right? Why was cylinder guy fun? Because his shoulders and hips, they were a little bit curved or a little bit at different angles. It's kind of fun. The other thing is, okay, you've established a perspective here, right? When you place this foot here, you have the butt cheeks, the shoulders, they're all going at this angle. So we've got a long lens because remember, if this angle isn't changing throughout the entire figure, that's a long lens. So the camera's far away, we're looking down at this guy. What was I going to say? I just lost my train of thought. Okay, so anyway, you've established that perspective. And I think we'd be able to see a little bit more of the interior or like that top ellipse of that dude. This would come back. Okay, that's all good. Gesture wise on his arms, right? I think you're trying to go for that sort of like naturalistic arm that's like down at the side. Like let's say I just did this. How do you even change that? So if you're trying to go for like a natural thing, in side view or 3/4, there is a backwards angle of the upper arm and then a forwards angle of the lower arm. But I think you overdid it a little too much. Like the arm is kind of going back too far for it to feel natural. So lower the angle of that a little bit, have it go a little more straight down. And yeah, just change the difference in that angle ever so slightly. So it's not so intense. What else? Yeah, same with the legs. You know, the legs do angle in a little bit. So try to capture these tapering and getting closer together and change the angles of the feet, right? That's one of the big ones. Give me different angles of the feet. That always makes a pose feel so much better. The feet are at the same angle. We're going to change that. Let's do it. Yep, the feet are at the same angle. It's not going to work well. It's like a really easy way to stiffen up a pose. And I think proportionally on that last little bit, proportionally, I think the head is a little weird. Keep the head, like, I kind of just think of the head as a rectangle, or at least for like the male head. Or like if I'm thinking about like my main like go-to for like a dude's head, it's sort of like rectangular. Even in 3/4. I know there's a cranium, but you know, we're exaggerating. And you forgot the hair spikes. You forgot the spike. Forgot the most important detail, hair spikes. But yeah, the foot angle is a very important thing. Get good feet angles going on, makes things much nicer. Neutral poses are interesting because I feel like they're the easiest to tell if there's something wrong. And if you do neutral poses in a way that's really organic, it's like the coolest thing. Like yeah, if you can get that down. And I'd say rather than trying to construct it, you know, just do nice loose gestures. Right? Like, why is that interesting? Or at least why do I find what I just did interesting? There's like a natural curvature of the spine going on there, different angle of the tilt of the shoulders and the pelvis. It's like a pose you would see somebody doing, you know? And it's like all the nicest line work in the world doesn't make a cool gesture like that. Add a little bit of wind in there, your money now. You got some wind going, boom. So study fashion photos too. They have a lot of really cool natural poses. This looks like it should be in a modern art museum. It's sick. I really like this like model that you're doing. I would be careful of the perspective though. You're doing super dynamic stuff, and then like the degree of these would be really wide because now we're looking down at the floor. I'd be seeing the top planes of the feet. Right, super duper wide angle poses, very challenging. We are going to go into that later in the class. I wasn't trying to start there though, but you're trying to rush ahead. I get it. You're trying to beat the class to the punchline. I understand. But do be careful because you can get yourself into some tricky situations.
James, I have a question. I know it's not my peak right now, but the I don't know exactly how to ask this. When you're trying to make a dynamic pose and you want the tilt, the angle of the hips and the shoulders to be different, if you're using a wide angle lens and the angle is different, like just because of that as a factor, but the forms aren't actually in a different degree of axis,
Yep.
but it just looks like they are, is that enough or is that not enough?
Yeah, no, so think about it this way, right? You're in control of everything. So what's a way to make a neutral pose dynamic? Shoot it with a wide angle lens. If the goal is always clarity, right? So if you do something where it's like you're shooting in a wide angle lens, and then because it's wide angle, it makes it confusing if it's just a natural tilt or if it's the camera, well, then you fucked up, because now I can't tell. And I think if you can't tell, then you don't want that. So the goal should always be clarity, in my opinion. So this one was pretty easy for me to tell that it was wide angle because of this sort of thing. Because yeah, you could tell with those lines. Once we get into super dynamic poses, I think that will become a little bit clearer. But I do understand your concern, because sometimes that happens. If somebody was like, let's say they're leaning back, the wide angle might make that backwards lean even more intense. So it could act to amplify the effect you're trying to get. So, whatever you're doing, I think you want to try to amplify what you're attempting to get across. Wait, let's get a clear canvas. Get out of the way. Right? Like if I'm doing this backwards lean, that might not be that much, but the wide angle is exaggerating what I'm trying to get the pose to do. If the wide angle starts competing with what I want the pose to do, well, then don't use a wide angle. Right? Sometimes it's not always, like, just because wide angle is cool and like a hard thing to draw doesn't mean we should always use it. We just want to use it when it amplifies our intended, the thing we're intending to do. But yeah, that might not be the most, like if I shot this in a normal lens, that might not be as dynamic. But yeah, anytime you're getting confused, or it's like, sorry about that, get off the screen. Yeah, if you're finding yourself confused, I'd say get some reference and try to understand, like, what am I trying to say? I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm just gonna leave it there.
Super helpful. It
Sorry,
makes a lot of sense.
Cool.
I mean, it's contextual, it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes I'll ramble and I'm like trying to make a point and then I don't know where the hell I'm going. So I'm gonna end it there. Let's look at pizza. That is pizza's God-given name. We discovered.
That's right. That is me.
That your parents did name you pizza, correct?
Yeah. They're
Okay,
really into Italian food.
Nikita. Okay, that's what you.
Yeah, sorry.
I wish that was true though. Your parents were just like, yeah, we fucking love pizza. It's so good.
Yeah. Would have been a tough high school experience.
Yeah. Okay, great work. This is awesome. Seems like you're not having any issues. Here's kind of an example of what we were just talking about, where the tilt of the torso is obscured by the camera angle, right? So if we were working in a project, like an animation project, and you were trying to shoot this pose at this camera angle, I'd say, don't do that, because you're obscuring the purpose of this pose, right? Like, because you've now shot it at a top-down angle, you were competent enough to figure out what that pose was, because you're good at this. But if we were like in a studio and we're like, okay, which one of these are we going to use? I would maybe do this one because we can really clearly see that tilt, or this one. You know, anyone that like emphasizes what we're calling the essence of the pose. This one down here, looking down at the figure, doesn't emphasize it and is just a bad choice, but a good exercise nonetheless. So good work. But I think that's kind of the main point I want to get across with any of those wide angle lens things. If your pose is fucked over by the camera lens or the camera angle, shoot it at a different angle. There's no sense in screwing yourself over like that. But yeah, like I said, no problems here. You did a great job. Everybody's killing it on the perspective. Absolutely crushing it. Okay. I think the shape thing I mentioned still applies, although you were doing a good job of getting tapering shapes. Like you're using different types of shapes, which I really appreciate. Let's see. What would I suggest here? Be careful. And now I'm going to sound like I'm giving hypocritical advice. Sometimes those lines can get too bold where they should be. Like, I like the way these lines are nice contour lines, and I think it kind of are losing that a little bit here. The other thing on this twist guy, I would like to see more convex lines rather than concave lines, because if you think about it, that's filling up with flour in there and it's going to be concave or convex, sorry. Right. And that might be a little nitpicky, but I think the reason it's important is because that doesn't feel like it's emphasizing the twist as much. It's not showing me the weight of that twist. Whereas if you make these lines convex, it will show that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I struggled with the twist, I think, as well in the other ones. So
Yeah, it's a confusing thing to get. I just messed it up, so. But yeah, using concave lines will help emphasize that twisting motion. Yeah, and let's do that one over. I think emphasizing this S curve is really helpful as well. So I think of the letter S whenever I'm having a flour sack twist. It also helps if you think, okay, in this case, on the bottom half, we're seeing the front of the flour sack, and then on the top half, we're seeing the back. That's one way we can make that work.
yeah, I struggled a lot with like making it twist as much as I wanted to. I always found like when I would finish that it was not as exaggerated.
Yeah. So, okay, check this out. What can we do to make this twist even further? Well, the ultimate amount of twisting would be if the top half is 180 degrees, right? So it's perfectly in line. I wouldn't necessarily want to do that because I think it doesn't sell the twisting motion as much. But okay, we're gonna have the top half be 180 degrees on the bottom. But what happens when you wring out a towel? It gets tighter in the middle, right? And it gets like really, really tense. And
That makes a lot
sometimes,
of sense.
yeah, there's like more wrinkles going on. So that's one way you can show that twisting motion getting even more intense is just squishing it in the center. It's like wringing out a towel. So that went from like kind of twisted to even more twisted, and then we can bring it all the way around. So we're starting to see the front again. We've added a whole new form because we've twisted it up so much.
That poor flour sack.
Yeah. Just abusing it right now. Wait, let's make that even clearer that that's the front again.
What shape would the new form be when you're full rotation?
I don't know. Try it out, you know, get some practical, get yourself a towel or something, you know. I'm just like, the idea is that I'm using a tapered shape, sort of like this. You know, I can't exactly tell you what shape that would be, right? I don't know what it's going to be like, but I'm trying to get a sense. I'm like trying to put myself there and imagine what's happening, and then I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna squeeze it even more. Or if you've like ever wrung out a towel, you see like these sort of like diamond shapes. It's like a spiral sort of shape. So do some experiments, get a little reference. You know, it's important to, I feel like art is very tactile, you know, get yourself, like when I was learning cylinders, I was using paper towel tubes, cups. I had like a lot of things there at my disposal, which helped learn those things a bit better. All right. Okay, these figures look great, but I want to just see everything first. Okay, let's go back to these figures. Cool. I like the, you've got a sort of good natural shape design to it. I really appreciate it. I like the line work as well. Not sure if this looks like you're going for almost like a classical type finish, which I like, or like a comic book finish. I don't know if you were the comic artist.
I wasn't, but yeah, I was like something in the middle.
Cool. I like it. It looks good. It might be a little hard to animate. Just personally, I find it really hard when you use realistic features because these shapes are so small. But that's not really a critique because it looks good. So
this is like, I have this problem, like whenever I start doing a figure drawing, I start like getting pulled into doing like a more realistic shapes as opposed to simplifying. So it's like one of the things I struggle with.
So what I would do is, you know, make it as easy as possible. Maybe just take part of the figure, like let's just say we're doing a face, and then have style reference off to the side and try to draw that face as style reference. That way you're sort of like taking baby steps into stylizing the figure. Again, you don't have to do that. I don't want to be an advocate for something you don't want to do.
No, I'm definitely going for it. So
cool.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. In that case, definitely you should do that because
Awesome.
that will help. You know, I still do that. I was just showing before. I have what just happened to my reference board? Oh yeah, I have style guides off to the side. Right. So I'm working on this Musashi thing. I've got some reference of the original character, and then just like designs that I really like the shapes of. And so I use this to help guide the direction I want to go into.
Gotcha.
So very important to do that. Cool. These are looking good. Be careful with the cranium there. You're elongating that a little bit. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, I don't know if you're doing this intentionally, but when you're doing a line drawing, the more details you add, the sort of older the figure is going to look.
Yeah,
So,
I noticed that after.
Yeah, so you've got a little bit of like an old man thing kind of going on, which I don't mind. It's kind of interesting. Let's see, what is giving me that? It might just be this posture. Oh yeah, and like the sort of elongatedness of the skull feels like that a little bit. The simpler shapes you use, the easy or the younger it will look. And I think you can streamline down some of these shapes. I was talking about that this week in class. Is like when you're drawing a figure or doing something, try repeating the drawing and just eliminating details. So look what I'm going to do here. Just smoothing things out. Getting rid of details. I could even make that simpler. Right. So do the drawings and see how much information you can get rid of. I think when you do that, That's when it starts to feel really fun. Cool. And there's some proportional things, like if you want to make like what I just did here, I made the face a little bit more proportionally square. That makes the character look younger. Also this little like cat nose thing they do in anime. Bigger eyes. All that stuff helps. Yeah, and the less details you put, the younger it will look. So I'm trying to think of what else is making this feel a little bit older. Don't know. But all right, let me talk about the balance, because I think that is actually all your figures are very balanced. So like they don't feel like they're falling over or anything, which is great. I don't know if you studied Bridgman, but I feel like there's a little bit of Bridgmanisms going on, which is sort of part of what I think is making your characters feel a little bit older. That is something that happens just because there's more details and like the shape design of things. I would taper down the legs a little bit more. It feels like the shape from the hips all the way to the leg is just getting wider and wider and wider, whereas I feel like from the hip it should get thinner. Like the hip should be the widest point there. And
Yeah,
kind
especially like I'm looking at it now, since it's facing us, it looks like really weird. Because
that's all good.
Yeah.
Listen, this is the hardest part, is getting the shape design to work. It's kind of like the last part, when things start to get exciting. But yeah, here, let me even talk about simplifying in terms of what I was doing. So I just drew these hips. Instead of going and doing like some crazy design, I'm just gonna draw a rectangle all the way up that kind of tapers. I've just eliminated so much detail. Let's give him a little waistline. Let's try getting rid of details. This is me not wanting to draw hands. Sometimes you don't want to draw hands. So simplify it down a little bit. Depending on the look that you're trying to go for. Like I aged this character down from your old guy. And so how did I do that? Well, we can just make these things like the legs really, really simple shapes. And I still want you to do shape design like we were talking about yesterday, having one side of a shape be simple and the other side complex. So a version of that would be like this. Oh, madam, I am doing a critique for my class. Would you be willing to take the dog outside? Yeah, sorry. No, it's okay. So, sorry about that. One side's simple, the other side's complex. You could still do that, but just like make the shape design even more subtle. So one side, and then I'm just gonna round out these shapes, make the little nooks and crannies not too crazy. And then, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things I really like to do is just taper that leg down such a tiny point and then have nice wide feet shapes. I like that. Stylistic preference, but I'm into it. Why I like that though is it's just essentially tapering and then tapering out. Cool. So yeah, all these elements, like the way you're hunching over the neck feels like a really, really old person. And part of the reason that's happening is if we look in the profile view, or I guess it's it's closer to profile view. The rib cage is kind of upright. You know what I mean? The rib cage isn't leaning forward like this. It's all the way up. So then his neck is just leaned forward. And so then that makes him feel really, really old, which you may have inadvertently discovered something that you might not have known before.
Yeah, this is kind of what I meant with like the twist, where I would try and do something with the forms, and then I would look, and it was just not nearly as like leaned forward as I wanted or something. So
Yeah,
I think it's again, I'm getting lost in detail. So
that happens. So here, let's talk about this one. Like I said, I think the inclination is to add extra detail, or like when I was doing the skeletal gesture, right? The inclination is to separate these forms out when you're doing it, right? You've added this giant shadow underneath the rib cage, right? Let's just combine all that together. Into one mass. Right? Because in actuality, that shadow that you have there is way, way, way more extreme than you would see with fat, muscle, all that stuff added on. So you want that to be a little bit more subtle. I think I made that head too far off. I'm gonna turn it to the side, because why not? So yeah, try just like eliminating some details, right? And using a body form that feels more solid, or like more nuanced, I guess is a better term for that. Okay, that feels a little bit more natural and a little less dramatic. All right, I think that's the main takeaway for me on this. Yeah, and you like sharp shapes. You don't have to get rid of that though. You don't have to get rid of that. I like that as well. Yeah, I think we can play around with where we sharpen things up, but I think not a bad thing. All right, awesome, great work.
awesome, thank you.
No problem. All right, Kimchi gave me I think I downloaded.
I was having trouble uploading it where only like 2 of my images seem to appear.
Oh, that's annoying.
So I had that issue too. I had to do it multiple times, and then it eventually like worked. But
I'm gonna have to talk to Rad about it. I'm gonna have to talk to Rad about this. Okay, I think I looked at. Oh yeah, I already looked at Alex's stuff, and that's from week 1. Yang, I don't know if you're here. Perhaps try to implement last week's feedback in terms of simplifying silhouette. Yeah, you did a good job. I really like. It stuck out to me immediately how you kind of designed these shapes really well. Something I like. Let's see the best example of it. Like here, and maybe I'm just like trying to find my own preferences. I don't mean to do that, but I like anytime a curve is divided. So as opposed to doing just a flat curve, adding those inflections to it, I find, here, let me do.
I'm so sorry, do you have the keys?
Oh, I don't know if I have the keys. Oh yeah, I do have the keys. Sorry about that. Adding inflections in the curve, I think makes it way more interesting. Oh, thank you, Ramimo. rather than just a smooth curve. So anyway, I was going back to complimenting you. You did a good job of implementing that in a lot of different regions, and I think that looks good. Cool. And the squash is very apparent. I like this one a lot. That one's great. Yeah, the way you designed the shapes on that fold, right? Every element in a drawing you can design. So like the way those shapes are designed is very nice to me. Cool. Yang out here crushing it. Really like the nice simple mannequin shapes. For me, I like to see a little bit of like some areas being a little sharper. I think you know, it seems like you probably prefer the softer shapes, but we looked at, I'm pulling this up. We looked at Christina Zhang yesterday, and she's got a lot of soft shapes, but every so often get something like that knee or the base of that shirt where it's just like a nice straight edge, and you could do that, you know, design these shapes, some of these shapes like the knee, and that would really balance out these curves well. You know, or the heel, just make that like a straight end. But I think other than that, that's looking pretty good. And yeah, this is my own preference still a little bit, but like I think on the lower legs we can add a little bit more dynamic to them. And by that I mean like taper that down a little more. And then I'm gonna make the back of that foot a little sharper. But I don't know, I'm kind of nitpicking. I don't really want to nitpick. Other than that, I think these characters are ready to have some hair and facial features because they're looking good. Yeah, also areas like the hips and stuff we can sharpen. We can use maybe a flatter shape for the butt here. You'd be surprised. Certain areas, like our inclination is to make butts round, but they're not very round. Like you kind of used just a straight curve it's got no inflection to it, but really we would see more straight down and then a flatter shape towards the bottom. Cool. Oh, area where you can add some squash as well, like right in there, right? That leg is up. I want to see a little bit of folding going on there. Here as well. We didn't do too much anatomy, but you might want to see, especially with the shoulder up like that, we'd see the scapula underneath there. So some of that stuff can help push that. Good shape design in the arms here, really like that. Overlap on these lines as well, like the form of the forearm, that's a confusing thing to say, can overlap into the hands to show a little bit of that functionality. The forearm, yeah, there you go. Yeah, so just in the same way that like the rib cage overlaps that arm right there, the way you drew that, you know, have that happen everywhere. So the forearm, it's going to overlap into the hand. Overlapping lines, I feel like I need to emphasize that more in the class. I feel like I didn't acknowledge that to the degree it needs to be acknowledged. Nice. So good. You're really doing a great job, really implementing the flour sack here. So good. Yeah, I love it. Nothing to complain about. Oh, you just decapitated these people. It's messed up. Ooh, nice hands. Hands are so tough. Your shapes on the hands are great too. Damn, Yang. Damn, it's looking good. Starting to get self-conscious about my hand drawings. Damn. Some disclosure. All right, you've been drawing for 1.5 years, really struggle with bending knees. I'm going to see that here. Let's see. I actually don't think you did a bad job of the basic blocks at all. I kind of have to disagree. Don't be that artist that's like, oh, come on, come on. Don't be that artist that's like, oh, I did a bad job, and then you do cool hair shapes like that. Get the fuck out of here with that. Get out of here with that. None of that. You did a great job. None of this faux humble nonsense. Get out of here. If you do something good, you gotta boast about it. You gotta be like, wasn't that fucking sick? I really like the way that shadow shape. I'm just like highlighting it for everybody. The way that shadow shape shows the articulation of the butt and the leg muscles. Really, really good stuff. I think we could do the same here a little bit with the rib cage, right? Because that form, and we'll talk about it when we go into lighting, guys, because this might be a little confusing, but essentially why we're getting these diagonal lines is a consequence of how light works. So let me draw that out. Okay, if I've got a ball and then a cylinder, I cast a light from the top left, we're going to get a shadow shape that looks like this. Right, so we get this sort of like lightning bolt shape that happens where the shadow jumps between those two forms. And so areas like, let's say the light in this case is coming from the top right, we're going to get this lightning bolt effect as this is in shadow and then it jumps to this form. So anytime we've got a merging of forms like the deltoid and the bicep tricep, we're going to have a jumping of the shadow shape. And I'll show you, I kind of use that all the time. I just like simplify that down. Let me pull up Clip Studio. Same deal. I'm using that lightning bolt shape to show the meeting of two forms. And then all I do here now, like I'm adding an extra layer of simplicity where I just draw in that shape. And instead of showing any 3D volumes, I just do a lightning bolt shape, and then it shows the 3D volume. And you see it happening everywhere. Right here, yeah, you'll see it all over. Sick hair shapes though. I'm gonna go back to that. Damn, I always fuck that up. And you do the thing that I like, which is it all goes down to one point and then it curves over on itself. Nice. I always forget to do that with the hair. I'm gonna steal that. Yeah, great shapes on the wrist and hand there. That looks good. I don't think the bending legs looks fine to me. This looks better than mine, so I can't, yeah, love that. Looks so good. Yeah, no, that's good. I didn't make this one different. That front view is always tough, right? Because it's hard to show that curvature. One of the ways I do is I just sort of like taper, something like that. So I show that it's going back in space a little bit. Yeah, Ramimo just signed up for the class to come flex on us all. I get it. We get it. We're on to you. One thing, I do feel like the butt shape got a little gigantic there in comparison to over here. Not that we have any problem with that, but I think it just went out a little too far. Not trying to body shame. We just changed the shape of the form a little bit, that's all. You know, this is good shit. I love it. Yeah, I don't have anything to say. You did a great job. Go teach a class. There you go. All right, RJ. Secretly a professional artist. Yeah, exactly. It's looking awesome. All right, RJ. So I think the same thing that I talked about before applies to you when I was talking about, I've been talking about shape design, right? Your tendency is to use round shapes everywhere. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that, but the reason why that lacks shape dynamic is because circles aren't, or rounder shapes aren't as directional. And also we can, we can use shape design to sort of reinforce what's happening. So part of what I was talking about before, I'm going to take this guy. I'm using flatter shapes towards the bottom to show that it's sturdier, it's on the ground. And then more of the flour is in there. And like, if you ever have like a bag of flour or sugar or something, like you hold it up, all the flour goes to the bottom. So let's emphasize that. So it's thinner up towards the top. All right, see, I'm using a flatter shape down towards the bottom. Yeah, I think that will help. So watch what I'm doing. I'm changing the dynamics of the shapes, right? This side is already rounded. So now, and I like the roundedness here, right? So there's a nice contrast of the top plane being flat and then certain areas being rounded. If you reserve your round shapes for where things are bunching up, then it's going to feel a lot more interesting. Yeah, here as well, let's. Right, what am I doing? Well, I'm adding a little bit of, just making that top convex, or sorry, concave. I keep fucking that up. I don't know what's going on with my brain. We looked at that at Christina Zhang yesterday, right? And she was doing this thing with her shapes where she just like made certain edges concave so that it reached a point. And I kind of like that. Also, look what I'm doing. I'm being consistent with the silhouette, although you, for the most part, you're doing a good job of keeping that silhouette consistent. All right. Glad the facial expressions are wrapping over the form. But yeah, I would say change up some of those the shapes to emphasize weight. Like this one we can. And look, I'm going to make the top edge concave to really show that it's like folded over. And let's make this base really convex. So kind of like that. Maybe we're even going to see the top or the back side of that a little bit because it's folding over. All right. Cool. Always a good idea to make everybody farting. I like that. Love that. Love that for you. Love that. Love that look. Still want to see you push that silhouette a little bit more. Right? I want to see nice, solid silhouettes. Don't be afraid to emphasize that line weight or just like go in there with it. Face shape wise, I like to keep it oval shaped or like if I'm just doing a sort of default thing. Kind of like that. Or add a little bit of a point to the end there. Right, or maybe even some edges up here at the top. Who knows? Whatever you want to do. You'll start to learn shapes that you like. But I think, yeah, some of these areas like this head down here, we're losing a little bit of that silhouette. Oops, I just made a giant ear on purpose. Yeah, and some of the line weight, like the interior lines are just as strong as the silhouette. So it kind of distracts, right? Like this one, I have to use my imagination to figure out if the arm is in front or if the leg is in front, right? So you got to tell me what's happening. And line weight is going to do that, right? I'm not saying you shouldn't draw through because, you know, it's nice to draw through at times, but you got to use your line weight to tell me what's happening. If you want to do a simple shape as well for the face, I would, let's see, one like this. It's you've got sort of this cranium thing going on, which is telling me that it's in profile view, but also the eyes are placed in a way where it'd be in 3/4. And when it's in 3/4, that shape really is way more simple and a little bit more rectangular. Meaning, like, if this is our side view, it's longer this way, whereas in the 3/4, it's not as long. It's almost like if you just took a rectangle. So proportionally, just want to make sure that works. What else? Yeah, and then you can add your little eyes. But I will suggest, just because you're drawing faces on all of them, there's some really simple shapes you could do. To just feel a little bit more naturalistic, right? Like if you look in anime, they just use, a lot of times they'll just use a single line or a dot for the nose. There's simple shapes that you can do when you're drawing the full figure that sort of help sell that as a face. And they're not that difficult to draw. Just takes your drawings to the next level. Right? Simple shapes. I wouldn't even, it's not even the best eye shape, but it's just kind of like an almondish shape. Some brows. Or if you want to go full anime, you know, do the whatever you want to do. Cool. All right. So yeah, I would say reinforce the silhouette so it's a little bit stronger. Be careful of, and this is something we saw a lot of people do so far, shapes that are the same slope on either side, right? You see here, it's the same exact slope. And then what I try to do with my shape design is, like if we have you're doing it on the lower leg, for example, which is, you've got the upper part, which is the muscular part of the shape, the muscular part of the anatomy, and then the lower part, which is the bony area, right? And that happens on almost all of them, right? The thigh is the same thing, right? It's a little bit more convex up top, but then towards the knee, it bows out a little bit, or it becomes more concave, right? So there's dynamic to that shape. Maybe we'll just use a straight line for the front of the leg, so it's even more contrast. So a little bit of contrast there will help. Play around with those shapes, strengthen up the silhouettes. It's going to be gorgeous. It's going to look gorgeous. All right, we're going to look at the range of motions. Okay, the thing that's jutting out at me is not what you want to be what you want to be jutting out at me, which is, I find the eye shapes to fall into the uncanny valley a little bit. And I think it's because of the scale of how big they are in relation to the face. And in the 3/4 view, it's feeling a little weird. They look like, it's almost like how, like it would look better on a younger character's face. Oh yeah, I know. I know they're jokes, but it's fucking with my brain. It's making it difficult for me to look at it. I feel like, yeah, anyway, whatever. We don't need to spend time on it. But let's keep going. Okay, here, let me pause. There's one pose. Oh yeah, right there. That's the one I was looking for. Yeah, right there where he turns. Okay, be careful. You've turned this a lot. And so that degree of that shoulder socket, it's going to be a little bit wider. Depending on how you want to turn the face, right? Like in this pose, I could have him turn his torso, but then keep his head looking forward. That might be interesting. So that would affect the shape of that. And here, yeah, this would be still a little bit wider than what you've got, but yeah, it is almost the same exact shape. And the more you turn that, the wider that degree is going to get. Just a little bit wider. Don't want to lose all that volume. Okay, and let's be careful. We don't want to lose the posture, right? Got to make sure our center of gravity, like when you change up the shapes a little bit, like here's a good example. You use different shapes for the legs, but now that's affecting where the center of gravity is because the shapes you're using are wider than the ones I used, but also it's like shifted over a little bit. So you got to pay attention to, I mean, you know, that's one of the things that happens if you're like translating directly from my drawings. And you're not the only one to do this. Like, I think this always happens. So pay attention to your drawings as well. Like, it's better for your drawings to be consistent within themselves than trying to get the exact pose that I did when I was doing the range of motion. And in fact, this is a suggestion for everybody, come up with new poses too. dude, there's all sorts of things you can do and little postures you can do to push that forward. Right? Good idea is like write it down, be like, or stand up and try to do some of these postures and then do some sketching of it. I guess that skeleton really helps. I like the skeleton when I'm like, I don't want to make a good drawing. I just want to like study something, right? Because then you can just loosey-goosey. It's like, I'm just not paying attention. Or if it's like, I just want to get a sense of what angles the arms make, if you don't want to like have to try too hard to draw, but you get a lot out of that. But when you add the shapes on top of the skeleton, it makes more sense. Yes, that is true. All right, do you have more? Did I miss anything? Oh, wait, what else do we have? What do we have here? I love the pace of that. He's like doing aerobics class over here. Okay, let's see. With this one, and I don't know if this was a mistake on my demo, I would, just to get the range of motion, I would have those arms up a little bit just to really push that. Maybe bend that a little bit. Right? Imagine like going down and doing a quick squat. Those arms are going to go up and there's that natural bend. Looks like I'm giving him mech arms or something. Yeah, because like, okay, this never feels too natural. I like this upturn of the hand, by the way. Good job on that. Right, there's always a subtle bend. Like, okay, I've drawn the arms up here, right? But look, the upper arm goes up at this angle, and then forearm bends in a little bit. So just a subtle bend. And then the butt should be a little bit lower. Right, so the humerus is going down into the hips. Let me pull this off to the side so we can see it. Yeah, kind of like that. All right, it's a little bit more natural. Yeah, I mean, it's something we can definitely talk about in the class. I feel like, it's hard to capture everything in such a limited amount of time. But that's why you guys pay the big bucks, so we can sit here and talk about it in the feedback session. Cool. All right, great work. We've got, who do we have left? We got Gabe, David. I thought I saw this last week, but I could be wrong. Maybe I didn't. Let's see. Who's this from? Is this Gabe as well?
I have no idea which one you're looking at. Oh yeah, no, two of them. They're both the same. The first one is the sax, and then I had to do it like that because it wasn't uploading.
Bro, you gotta stop sending me sack pictures.
Listen, man, I just can't help it. I can't help it, man. I just be like, I just be in the zone. Just be like, all right.
I understand it. Yeah. All right. Okay, we got you, and then, sorry, I'm just trying to get a sense of how much I got left here. Did pizza. Okay, this is why you should start at the bottom and not right in the middle. That was very stupid of me. Okay, let's get to it. If it lets me open up the image. I gotta talk to Rad about this. I talked to Rad about this site messing me up. Okay, something that juts out to me immediately is when you get into the front view, I think you're confused as to how to show perspective, which is a very reasonable thing to be
Correct.
confused about. Am I right?
Correct.
Okay, good. That's what I thought.
I'm in
So
the struggle.
think about it this way, right? Let's look at this guy. We don't have a lot of information we can use to tell us in the front view. I think you did a better job here, and I'll show you why. So if the rib cage is leaning back, let me find some free space here. That means the base of this is closer to us. And so the shape gets wider towards the bottom, whereas here you made it wider at the top. And so it doesn't feel like it's receding in space all that much.
Okay, that makes sense.
The other thing is sometimes things just are more subtle and they don't give us many visual cues. So a lot of times in front view, you're not going to see all that much perspective, right? The way you're handling it is you're getting frustrated, and then what you're doing is you're making these lines crazy dynamic. So everything else you did in a long lens, and then you're like, well, fuck this front view bullshit. Everything here is like, yeah, you went into fisheye lens, and really it's just going to look like this if you did those forms. Would be it really just wouldn't be that dynamic.
Got you.
Right. And so when you're in a front view, a lot of times things like value and lighting are going to be your best tools to show perspective. Or overlap, right? Overlap helps. Like if I do that helps you get a sense of what our perspective is.
Okay.
Because I'm using a subtle diagonal, but nothing too crazy. But now I'm putting the head in front to show that overlap. So overlapping shapes and light help in the front view, but it's kind of difficult at times to show perspective in the front view. So just don't do it. Just don't worry about it.
I guess like I'm trying to get into the habit of trying to, and then like if I fail at least, I can like learn from that, other than just like not trying it out. But
yeah, this is super unrelated, but I just found my cat's laser that I've been looking for months. And it was just behind my fucking tablet. I can't believe it.
Let's go.
I went out and got another laser. Damn. It's just right behind the tablet.
Dual wield.
Dual wield, yeah, there you go. Okay, for the twisting motion, remember back to animation class. You have no excuse, Gabe.
Listen, man, I'm still struggling with the twisting motions. Even in the animation class I was. But yeah, no, I knew this one was rough.
It's hard. It's all good. Let's see. I think this one where it's impacting the ground, let's do like almost like it's an arrow, and then we can do squash on the inside. So that way it's like we have some asymmetry in terms of the number of edges. I think that's a really good thing to keep in mind for silhouettes. If there's asymmetry, right? Look at the shape that you did here. You have essentially a bow tie shape, which is symmetrical in both directions. So it's going to not be interesting when you do that. So we can do, let's make asymmetry in top to bottom. And then, so I use a shape like this. So there's more weight up at the top of there. And then I'm actually going to add more edges to the inner part of the silhouette. Also, if he's falling, we can put all the legs in one direction, so it feels like it's falling straight down. right? So whenever you have a situation where you're thinking about shapes, just think asymmetry. You're doing it in a lot of areas. And I think at this point, you've heard me say a bunch of times, like how shapes convey, not you, I just meant in the course of this
No, I know what you
critique,
mean.
like shapes convey feeling. So more trapezoidal shapes, and you're doing it like here at this guy, you're using more trapezoidal shapes down at the bottom. So all that stuff is going to convey a feeling to the viewer.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Project City, are you going to load it? Okay, good.
Oh boy.
No, this is good. What's wrong with it?
Oh no.
What do you think?
Later in some of the later
Oh,
stuff.
okay. All right. Well, listen, something's happened. Okay, let's see. What did I want to say? Oh yeah, okay. Some of these shapes like here, where, can I zoom in a little bit? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so where the arm is connecting to the upper arm's connecting to the forearm,
Mm-hmm.
be careful. Sometimes you can like, I don't know how to describe it other than like strangling the shape, where it feels like at a very important joint, it's tapering down too much. Now, I know that sounds somewhat contradictory because I said about at the ankle, I really like when it tapers all the way down. But I think the difference is that the ankle's all the way at the extreme end of the shape, right? Like if we just have our shitty leg shape, the knee is right in the middle, so it's got a bend there, right? So if I taper it all the way down to a point in the middle, then it feels like that leg is going to break. Like it can't have, if I do this, it's got no knee, and then like that doesn't feel as good to me. And I think that's sort of happening with your shapes a little bit. Like here on the upper arm, we have almost like a lemon shape that gets wider out there, and then like this.
Yeah, I have a lot of, that's like probably the biggest Achilles heel right now is arms and legs.
Okay, we're going to talk about all the anatomy next week, so that will help.
Yeah, okay.
Here's a quick little bit though. We got triangle for our deltoid, or I guess that's like a rhombus. A tapered rectangle for the bicep, and then whatever that shape is. And then that shape. You know. And then let's say like a trapezoid for the hands. That's kind of how I break it down in my head. And now I know that's like a sort of complicated series of shapes, but that's sort of like the mental map that I'm using. It is widest at the shoulder, I feel like. At the deltoid, it should be the widest.
Okay.
I think you did the opposite.
Got it.
Don't worry about it. I know you're laughing, but you're good. Don't worry.
Yeah, no,
then
I'm chilling.
Okay, good. Another thing is with the arm gestures, just be careful of, it feels like the arms are all very linear, where we want to start to introduce a little bit of that bend to them. Doesn't need to be so much that it's ridiculous, but like a little bit of back and forth.
So it's not like just straight, it's just like it has like a little bit of, like the joints are like actually working.
Yeah, if you like the way you drew it was kind of like this, where it's just a straight line. You want to deviate from that a little bit, so that's got a little bit of movement there. The other thing too, you could repeat this exercise just using the skeleton sketchy version of it too. Don't feel like everything's got to be clean lines, right? The main goal, and I think is even more important than getting good mannequins, is if you can get the gestures to feel really natural just in like a scribbly skeletal version. So I think I might have you do that and just like try to keep it super duper natural.
Okay.
Just to get some of those gestures a little more organic. Like take this one. I'm gonna do what I just talked about before, where I'm emphasizing the gesture, I'm gonna really push the tilt of the hips. Again, I didn't do the best job in the demo, so it's not entirely your fault. So what I did there, let me get rid of, yeah, I'm adding a little bit of a bend to the leg, right? The leg goes forward and then back and then forward again. These little gestures are super good to get used to. I'm exaggerating a little bit on this bend. It's not exactly that extreme, but that is the overall or the general gesture that you want to go for. What else do I think we can do? I think you're having a little trouble here where that's bending back. Again, that is a hard gesture to do. It is difficult. But I think we lost a little bit of the scale there, and our center of balance ended up shifting. So
Yeah.
everything is tilted this way. So now the legs are too far to the left. So he would actually be falling backwards a bit. Let me show you something. I like looking at, where is it? Oh, I don't have it on my reference board. As some of the character designs for One Piece are so simple, and they'll use leg shapes that are just like, that. I kind of want to advocate using just like really, really simple shapes. That way we don't get caught up with the, the dynamics of, like, you might lose gesture trying to capture the appropriate shapes of the upper leg, the lower leg, and that kind of thing. So the gesture is more important than the actual anatomy.
Yeah, I was starting to, so while you're doing some of the other critiques, I started doing the homework, and
Okay,
I was starting to kind of just not like exaggerate the anatomy necessarily, but more like just kind of pushing more into gesture and not worrying too much about accuracy, if
yeah,
that makes sense. But it was actually helping because then I inadvertently would get close to the anatomy of it just by focusing more on the gesture, if that makes sense.
exactly. No, that makes perfect sense. So yeah, I think that's my my advice here. I think go through, do more of those like skeletal studies, super loose, right? And really, really, really hone in on the gesture. Like, you want, not only do you want these angles of like the shoulder and hips, the angles of the arm you want to get in a way that just feels natural. And then once that starts to feel natural, you're like, oh, I got this. I got it. Don't worry too much about, is that the correct proportion? Don't worry about that. Cool. And you notice when I do these skeletal gestures, I'm like drawing through everything and I'm really scribbly.
Mm.
So something about having your hands just like down on the paper and then not lifting it up, there's something like kind of relaxing about that. It's like just being a kid. So I always suggest it. Cool, cool. I think with this ball, I would add a little bit of squash on it so it looks like it's not going up his butt. Just occurred to me, a little bit of squash. So something about it just felt really weird. So I just want to call that out. Oh, that's actually, I know this is a weird jumping off point. There's a good principle to talk about, which is, why does that look weird to me? Well, what you did was you put his butt and then you have the ball right there.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And what's weird about that is we have essentially what's called a tangent, which is just, those are we don't know how they're interacting. But if you do, or if you drew,
It's like it's there's like a connecting tissue to it.
exactly, yeah, you're telling me what's going on with the ball and the body. So weird thing to jump off from, but but I think that will help. And then one thing that's just occurring to me a little bit is it feels like some of the head forms are a little weird. So I would get used to, start with either the block or like almost like if you carved the block down a little bit. And just so rounded out the top. And get used to maneuvering that around. The Loomis head is a pretty good one to look at as well. But this is sort of like the maquette that you would buy in an art store. That's the shape I'm using here. So you actually could just go to an art store and use one of these.
Do you mean like this?
I can't see your camera, but I'm assuming you are showing me exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So practice just drawing. Those are great. Practice drawing the head shape in multiple angles.
Okay.
Who knew those things that were ubiquitous actually had some purpose?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, don't read Loomis though, because to be subjected to misogyny and body shaming. I do love that book though. That's the problem. Yeah, some people, he just had lots of issues with people. I don't know what his deal is.
No bitches.
That might have been the problem. Who knows? I don't know. I do think he had children though, so I'm gonna go on a limb and say that's not the issue. I think he's just a product of the 50s. Okay, let's see. Oh, I know this exact drawing. You got the foreshortening and the whatchamacallit. You got the proportions correct. So that's great. I think something like this too, give me a little bit of info about wrapping lines and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, that was one that I was wondering about too, because I was looking at a couple of times like, I don't know why this looks weird. And it's not
so
the feet.
in a situation like this, so I have comments about the shape design, but we'll get to that in a second. So
Yeah.
in a situation like this, you would see the calf muscle overlapping the thigh a little bit. And so when I have that line go inside the silhouette, that helps.
Okay.
If the character's wearing something like socks, that will help because then you can get a good sense of the perspective on that. That's why you'll see a lot of anime characters wearing like wraps and things. It just helps draw those ellipses. Cool. I think it will make more sense in terms of the shape design once we go into anatomy next week, because we're going to talk about all the muscle groups in here and the bony anatomy underneath, and that will help. In general, like I've been talking about, if there's a bone like the knee or the ankle, I'm going to try to emphasize the sharpness of it. So what did I do here? I made asymmetrical angles on the front and back. There is a group of hamstring muscles here that make this rounder towards the, like there's hamstring muscles in here that make this rounder up towards the butt. And then I'm same with the, with the lower leg. The shape is rounder by the muscle group. And then there's tendons that go down here. And in that area, it's bonier and all you have is bone and tendon. So it's a thinner shape. Now, when I just draw a shape like this, it's like naturally reflecting the underlying anatomy. But that's the explanation of what's happening. Is closer up here, we have muscle mass, and then down towards the joints like the knee and the ankle, it's all bone and tendon, so it tapers out. So just a little bit of info about the anatomy. We'll go into the nuances of that next week, but you can start to use that concept to inform your shape design a little bit more. And then I think with these lines, just give me nice longer brush strokes, right? Just to reinforce, have like confident brush strokes, right? You want to try to reinforce that silhouette, even if like a nice simple silhouette like this is great. You can just give me some confidence with it, you know?
Okay.
Like I had those Rock Lee drawings up the other day. I'm pretty sure it was basically the same shape. It just was like really confident in its execution.
Oh, so if I'm looking down, it's because I'm taking notes.
Don't worry, I'm not looking at your camera, so you're all good. I assumed it wasn't because you think my commentary is bullshit, considering you spent $800. So
That is true.
but I hope you think the commentary is at least somewhat useful. Otherwise, I'd feel like a piece of shit.
Yeah, you know, just B tier.
Oh fuck. Goddamn. Well, great work. Who else do we have left? Did I do curls yet?
I don't think you did. No, you didn't.
I did not, because I don't recognize this. I thought that said strength, and I was like, all right, let's do it. Strength. Okay. I'm going to point out the stretch here. Actually, there's a couple things I want to talk about. If you want something to feel stretchy, there's a few things we got to get, right? I think having curves or dynamics to it will make it feel like it's stretched. I know it's coming at you in a front view, which, as we mentioned, it could feel quite challenging. But I think, let's see, how can we get that to look good? I don't know. I don't think I would do that angle. Right? We talked about camera angles not selling the thing we're trying to do. Right? So in this case, we'd get like, I'd just turn it a little bit because I don't think we could see what we're trying to get. Yeah, I think really that's it at the end of the day. Some camera angles aren't going to express things properly. So anyway, main point I'm trying to make here is to emphasize stretch. Give me some of that tapering like you're doing in, really, no, I don't think there's enough tapering, right? So in this case, the shape has dynamic, right? It's just going wide to thin. This could work here where you're going in, but once again, I think we're getting too much symmetry. It's very boring. We want asymmetry. It's going to make the drawing look much more interesting. The other thing is, look at the dynamics that I'm using, and I know it's just a flour sack, but I'm, again, flat shapes at the base to show that it's interacting with the ground. Notice how I draw these little feet flat on the ground. I'm having it, this is like your spine going forward or your pelvis going forward, and then that rib cage leaning back as far as it can to show that stretch. Right, so it's showing dynamic in the execution. The other thing, be careful about line weight. I know I'm not being super careful with my line weight, but it does say a lot about the object as a whole. So a good example is like, let's do this twisting one for a moment. Okay. What happens when I take this line that's that's going inside the silhouette and I do this? Well, what I did was I told you that, oops, didn't mean to do that. Instead of something being this thick, I told you that it's paper thin. right? Because now my silhouette is just a single line. So you're telling me you're changing the thickness of the object when you do that, right? So you might want to do this like Ramimo was doing before with the hair, right? You saw this instance where the silhouette or these contour lines became the silhouette, right? Like this line right here is becoming the silhouette. That's good to show something that's thin like hair, but if it's something thick like a flour sack, it doesn't convey the weight that we want it to convey. So be really careful with how you use your lines. They are somewhat important. You know, but again, I didn't really bring that up in class. It's not something that necessarily occurred to me to bring up in class. So I apologize about that. Yeah, and I think that will help these twists make a little bit more sense. Also, it might help if you draw a little box too, just to get a sense of the perspective on these. All right, I think you got the right idea. Just be careful with the shapes, right? Like here we've got this like weird bleb coming out. Doesn't look so great, right? Clear shapes, variety in the quality of your lines. So contour lines do different things than our silhouette lines. Also, your silhouette, or sorry, these contour lines that go inside the shape, you've got to make sure that they're not invalidating what you're trying to do, right? So if, like I said, if that contour line becomes the silhouette, you've made this thing paper thin now, which could be useful for like drawing flower petals or something like that, you know? And I think that's the big thing that juts out to me. Got the right idea. And I think, yeah, don't be too concerned to throw in some, you know, some of these interior line work, or some interior line work is very important. So it's useful to show some of that stuff. All right. I think that's all you got there. Uh-oh. All right, David. Hey, Rad, your website's not letting me load the image. All right, let me see what Dave's got. Okay. Perspective. It's looking good, although be careful. Oh, we got one. I get to be annoying about perspective. We've got this all going back to the right vanishing point. And then what happens? Sorry, the left vanishing point. What happens? That one just goes up at an angle. So what did you do? Well, you didn't keep this consistent. So what is what you, if we keep that vanishing point where it is, what is that saying to me? Well, it's saying you've turned the head this way. So you've actually rotated the head. So just be careful. You don't want to do that. You've given me a framework where all these lines are going back in one area. Then at the last minute, you're like, nah, bitch. Changing it up. I'm changing the game. So just be careful about that. Let's see. This one as well. Got this. A lot of cues that are telling me that my floor plane would be doing the same. Right? It seems like that would make sense. But then you're drawing the feet as though I'm seeing them at eye level. So just a little bit of confusion. I think given the rest of this, I think you'd see the legs like this, and I'd see the top plane of the foot. if this is in fact the camera looking down, which I think it is because we're seeing the top of the head. I think it would be something like that. Okay, this one I think the perspective is good. I just think the gesture is a little weird. Granted, you're bound to lose some energy when you're doing blocky boys, so I get it. Although, one thing I got to call you out on, I'm sorry, I guess that is my job right now. In this case, you got the pelvis leaning forward, and then the rib cage also leaning forward. That's a recipe for falling over. So it probably should be like, so we've got this bend in there. Something's got to, carry that weight. If it is leaning, if the whole body is leaning forward, that leg's got to come forward then to balance that out. Right? If you're doing yoga poses, right? I think warrior one, gotta have that leg come forward. All right, cool. Oh yeah, okay. Same here. All right, we've got top down. Then look what you're doing. All right. Wait. Okay. You've got this foot is back here, and then the whole body is slanted to the right. So the whole body is going to fall over because the center of gravity is like way over here. So what you'd have to do if you want this character to be upright is one of two things. We could shift this hind leg over to the right, or we can lift the body up and put it over here. Right, got to keep that center of gravity in a place where the character's not going to fall over, unless they're like flying or literally falling. Cool. All right, let's see what we got going on. Same little bit about the dynamics that I was mentioning in terms of the shapes, but one thing I want to talk about here is let's try to match those vanishing lines. I think you did a good job of getting the gesture. Let's just match the perspective a little bit better. And yeah, that's good. I'm showing a little bit more of that curvature of the spine with that shape. Here we've got a twist, very challenging. Looks like you got that down though. It's definitely challenging. Yeah, it looks good. I would just use straight lines, honestly. I like using straight lines for these, for the shoulder and pelvis. Yeah, nothing to complain about here. This one's great. This one, same sort of shape dynamic stuff I was talking about before. A little bit of pinching going on. What's the last bit? Okay, yeah, same sort of thing, right? I can't tell what the gesture is on that, right? That's a zigzag. I can't tell. The main goal is that he's leaning forward. He's slumped over, I think. So reinforce that. did a bad job. Here I am critiquing and then out here doing a bad job of what I wanted to do. Who the hell do I think I am? So reinforce the gesture. For the twisting ones, you had the right idea on the other one. I think we're losing that a little bit here. I'm losing my marbles over here. Wait, let's do that again. Also, another thing that helps for drawing that twist is having all the lines emanate from one point. And then make sure these vanishing lines are different. Cool, nice, simple shapes. We can break that up a little bit. Also, the reason why on the squash in the back there, I'm adding that sort of like triangle. One, that does sometimes naturally happen. But two, it changes up the number of inflection points from the front to the back. So that's part of why I do that. Yeah, and any of these gestures, let's not have them be so complicated, right? Because now he's starting to turn into a slug. So try to keep it in proportionally, try to almost imagine it in 3 parts where it's just like rib cage, abdomen, pelvis, basically, but just of your little flour sack guy. It's almost as if he's an analogy for the character. It's crazy. All right. Well, that's not helpful.
Damn, that zip goes hard.
Yeah. Wait, I think I downloaded it.
I tried uploading it again.
Oh, okay, cool. Let me do a refresh.
Yeah, I re-uploaded some stuff of mine too. Apparently GIFs don't work on this site because it wasn't playing.
Oh yeah, I know. I tried to have GIFs in my whatchamacallit, in the class description. It did not. Did not work. Okay, let me just do a scope through here, Kimchi. Okay, I think you
They're all
uploaded 4 of the
supposed to be
same.
different. They're all supposed to be different.
They're all supposed to be different.
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, that was the issue that I had, is that it would upload like the same image like twice or something like that.
Oh yeah,
It
why
would
is
like
that
mess it
happening?
up. I mean, if he uploaded the zip and you downloaded it, you could just look through that.
True, I do have the zip. I do have the zip.
So I'm a bit behind on the homework, and these are a lot of week 1 stuff.
That's okay. It's all good. Such nice clean lines. But that's not what we need today. It's not what we need here. All right, let's start from here. Or actually, wait, start from this guy. Okay. So I think, like I said, your line, I don't know how your lines are so clean. They look so good. You did a great job. I like this one down here. No complaints about that bad boy. Really, really nice. Here we're getting that center of gravity thing. You know, that happens when we're doing stuff in perspective. But a lot of the mass is shifted over to the left. You got something you got to remember, which makes this confusing when you're doing gestures, is like you're moving in 3-dimensional space. So like if sometimes if I shift something over to the left, I'm not shifting it to the left, I'm shifting it back in space, or vice versa. Like it gets a little bit confusing, right? So, but in this case, you can kind of clearly see that all the weight should be distributed here, but it's all falling to the right. So you might say, okay, well, I'm trying to indicate a back lean, so how could I do that? Well, some elements got to come to the right to show that. Or if it's a curved posture, I'm not sure exactly what the gesture was. It's got to work in a way where all the limbs end up balancing right underneath the figure. So I would say repeat that. I'm not sure if that was where the photo reference was at, but it seems like when you're doing it at eye level, you're doing it
to the right.
Wait, oh, you uploaded it to the right, you said?
Yeah, it's a massive image, so to the right, I included the references on that box.
Oh. Ah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So
I tried to do it in a way that was intuitive, but because I'm doing it with pen and ink, but it's still messy. Sorry.
No, it wasn't messy at all. It looked great. Okay. Yeah, you see you shifted the weight over a ton to the left. I mean, I understand like the pose does feel almost unbalanced, but she's catching herself with this leg. See how much now all the weight of her torso that shifted over to the left is caught by this back leg. So the shoulder almost lines up with that back leg. I'm going to erase some of these lines. Now I'm being messy. Right, so everything's counterbalancing. So now the center of gravity is right there in the middle. So the figure's not going to fall over. So I think part of it was making sure these lined up properly. I think you also changed the perspective. So I think you made it, I think you brought the camera up. So how did that happen? Well, look at the tapering of this platform. If those lines are almost like perfectly parallel and that shape is more square, that means the camera's higher up. So I think you actually shifted your camera up if I'm not mistaken. Let's go, let's see. Yeah, you shifted the camera up. Right, the more actually square this platform looks, you're telling me the higher up the camera is. Whereas let's go back to the figure. It's hard to tell in a white void like that. Right, so that's where Anatomy 360 comes into play. You have to sort of figure based on where the camera's far away. I'm assuming the horizon line is somewhere around the waist. So you're gonna get a little bit more tapering on those lines. See that? Versus the shape that you drew for the platform, which was like this. So it gets a little bit confusing. That seems to be a consistent thing that's happening here as well.
Yeah, I probably do that a lot.
Here's a good little exercise you could do. Get yourself your 3D model, dude. Wait, actually, I'm going to reset that. All right, warning text coming out. And practice. There's a perspective mode on this. So I would say draw a platform out, try to get a sense of what the platform is, then go to the perspective mode. Let's see if that's out, if that's on here. But I'm going to show you something. I'll just do it based on intuition. Okay, so the horizon line, I'm in control of the camera, right? And wherever the camera is the horizon line. So in this case, the horizon line's like around here. Now, I'm going to lift the camera all the way up, which means my horizon line is like way above here. What's going to happen to the platform is these lines are going to be more parallel. See the difference in those two shapes?
Yeah.
Okay, so the higher up your camera is, the more your platform is going to look like a square. So what you're doing every time when you're drawing these platforms, you're telling me that camera is super high up when it's probably more tapered like this. And generally when you see photo reference of figure models, it's shot at eye level, which is how I'm assuming to do this trapezoid shape.
Okay.
Versus the way you're drawing it was kind of like that, where it was a little too high up. So using 3D helps with that, I think, or a character that's planted in an environment. It is an important concept though, especially because if you're animating, characters are going to have a lot of, whatchamacallit, a lot of the environment in there. Okay, let's see what's next. But other than that, the forms are great. Cool. Yeah, just be careful here, right? I think you're adding in maybe not more perspective, but I'm just concerned about where the foot placement is. It feels all right to me. Yeah, okay, and you know, with these, I know it's not always perfectly accurate in terms of the scale, but we want to get scale roughly, make that head a little bigger there.
Yeah, I noticed that on a couple of them.
Right, and feel free to use you know, shapes that are even simpler shapes to try to capture the gestures. 1 second, let's see. Yeah, I think what we were talking about yesterday, where we're taking our gesture line and then using that to create form, is a really valuable way to get through that. And then that makes these forms feel like they're more connected to each other. Cool. Yeah, I think for you, the doing, you know, and for everybody as well, but doing the 3D models or drawing from the 3D models where you have a clear grid on the ground is going to help, because then you'll see how the foot placement is it changes based on the perspective. Right, let me see what else we got here. Oops. Yeah, I don't think you're having problems rotating the figures at all, or sorry, rotating the blocks at all. That all looks fine to me. So it's not necessarily an issue of that concept that you're struggling with. But it is a different thing to take your figure and then apply it and put it into an environment. Awesome. Gestures are looking good. Cool. Yeah, your gestures are looking great. I think same thing we were talking about with shape design applies here. You know, there's some of these double convex shapes. Like I said, we're going to go into a little bit more about shape design next week as well when we talk about the anatomy. That's going to start to make sense. An area like this where the figure's leaned over, we can add some squashing, right? So just a little squash, just adding a little bit of squash there. And yeah, I think that's the big thing that juts out at me, like the shape design on the legs and stuff is just rectangles, which, you know, it works. Like I know those are legs, but we want to start to add more interesting shape design to those. So I would suggest looking at some other artists. Oh, there you go. You're already starting to do more shape design there.
Yeah, with the pen, I struggled to trying to get those fine shapes.
Well, that's why you draw with a pen. Who told you you're supposed to draw with a pen? Did I tell you that? I hope I didn't.
I don't undo as much.
That's nope. We're not doing that. You're gonna undo. We're not drawing. Nice. Yes. Just what you gotta do. Okay. Here,
Oh boy.
we can start the form. It's just we can start proportions a little bit. So, is my mic messed up?
Yeah, I think your
Hello.
hamster died because the wheel isn't turning. The internet isn't. Oh, he's completely gone now. I can't believe it came to you. Broke him. The thought of you using pens was too much. Wow.
Weirdly, it hasn't kicked us from the meeting yet.
Yeah, it said that if he doesn't rejoin in 60 minutes, it'll close the meeting. So I guess the program accounts for this, which is nice, I guess. He's off to delete the entire class.
Hey guys, while he's gone, let's draw some symmetrical shapes.
Yes.
Let's
that's
break up those
complete anarchy.
silhouettes.
Well, how's everyone doing?
I am super sleepy, but good.
Yeah.
Good vibes. What about you guys?
Same, super sleepy. I'm an hour ahead of you in the Netherlands.
Yeah,
So
I figured.
11 p.m. right now. Also, it is ridiculously hot.
Oh my god, dude, the heat wave in Europe this year has been insane.
Yeah, it's been like 3 or 4 in a row.
I know, like, give us a break.
Worst drought in 500 years. Like, come on.
Yeah, yeah.
The scary thing is now they're saying that it could happen again in as soon as 3 years. Drought like this.
Why can't it be like global cooling? It'd be so
I
much more
know, right?
tolerable.
Man, there's so much information in my brain. So interesting though.
Oh yeah, it's definitely full on, but worth.
Yeah, I don't have much drawing experience before this, so everything is like my brain is a little overwhelmed.
Are you working on being an animator or just like what kind of thing?
I come
like-
from, so I did like for 2 years of just sort of game technical art kind of stuff as a study,
Oh, okay. Okay.
which I've quit now. I've made a minor change in career. I've applied to the Dutch Police Academy, just a slight
Oh,
shift.
okay, yeah, that's that's a bit
So
off
I
the
don't know.
path.
Same general area.
Yeah, same general area, you know. But
I did
I can actually enjoy art now, so I'm drawing a lot again. I figured I'd join this because I've
That's
always wanted to be
true.
able to draw the figures. Yeah, not pursuing art as a professional career is the best choice I've made so far in my life, I think, because I really wasn't enjoying it anymore.
Oh, it sucks to hear, but I'm glad like you got the space to actually enjoy it now.
Yeah, and
I
I'm
did
gonna
like
do a
the
different
opposite.
career, which I'll really enjoy.
Yeah. I did the opposite to you. Like I finished school and I did a degree in something like totally not art related.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, this is a mistake. I want to draw.
Mm-hmm.
But part of
Yeah, a
figuring
lot of
everything
people at
out.
my study did that.
Yeah.
I had one German that had completed an entire university and master's degree in computer science, and then he came to study game design.
Isn't it free in Germany, school? Is it free in the
No,
Netherlands?
it's same as the Netherlands. I think it's really cheap, like relatively cheap.
Yeah.
2,000 a year is still a lot, but relatively cheap.
Ugh, the dream. It's like 9,000 a year here these days.
Yeah,
Like you get
and
government
with Brexit,
loans, but
yeah, with Brexit you can't come to Europe anymore, so you can't do Erasmus.
oh, dude, and don't don't get me started.
Yeah,
It's
because
so ridiculous.
that's the thing about Erasmus, which is what we're having a so we're having a problem in the Netherlands, where because it's so cheap here, a lot of people from different European countries are coming to Dutch universities, and because of Erasmus, they have to get the same, because of EU law, they have to get the same rates as Dutch citizens.
Yeah.
So that means that there's very little places left for Dutch students.
That's rough.
Yeah.
I mean, it should be like priority for Dutch students in that case, I guess.
They'll figure something out because we've also got a housing crisis.
But who doesn't these days?
Yep.
Oh, a beautiful, beautiful world we live in.
Yeah.
No, I think there's been a lot of like legal, not necessarily legal, but like technical issues because of Brexit with like all stuff like that though. I was working in a university when we finally left, and it was causing a lot of problems with like research and stuff, like significant medical research, which is not where you want to have problems really. It's like importing shit is just so difficult for no good reason.
Yeah, and it's with doctors as well, right? The UK has a really high proportion of foreign doctors, so
Really
I guess
high.
that's a problem now too.
Oh, our NHS is fucked. And nurses as well.
Yeah. But we've got that issue as well. But that's because we've
Yeah.
got a labor shortage everywhere.
Yeah.
Like for example, the police academy. I was talking to an officer at the open day, and he said when he joined, there were 1,000 people that signed up for 100 spots that were available. Now there were 70 spots available, and not even half of them were filled, and the deadline was tomorrow.
That's crazy.
And then it's going to get even worse because statistically only 1 in 10 people get accepted because there's a really strict selection procedure in Dutch Police Academy. And so it could be that I end up in a class of like 4 people, which would be bizarre.
That's insane. That's all these people getting art educations, honestly.
Bruh.
It's a total waste of time. No. It'll have to sort itself out eventually, whether it's through like
will.
total anarchy
Yeah.
or otherwise. Hopefully not that, but you know, small brain like me.
Oh man,
Honestly, small brain is the way to go though, honestly.
it do
Because since
be.
I
It
stopped
do be.
following like British politics, I have been so much happier. I just don't want to think about it anymore. You can't ignore
To
it,
me,
but
it's just entertaining.
okay, well,
Like,
are you talking
I
about
just
like
kind of
actual
read.
British?
I just read the surface level headlines, and I just kind of laugh. And then when it's election time, I'll do serious research and stuff. But
Oh yeah, yeah,
now
yeah.
it's just
You still
entertainment.
need to contribute to it, but
I mean, we're nothing compared to like some of the shenanigans, let's call it, that you guys have in the UK. But we also have some weird shit happening here, and it's just, yeah,
yeah.
you can't be unhappy if you didn't understand anything. Damn, that is a statement.
Empty the brain.
Empty the brain. Reject modernity. Return to monkey.
Monkey.
Speaking of empty head, empty, no thoughts, Nintendo mix. That's the right kind of music for this vibe. Has James said anything on Discord? Oh no, he's offline.
Oof. He's been doxed.
Yeah. Which one? Hell yeah. I'll teach the class. The master artist that I am. And
I think whoever can do the best James impression should teach.
I agree. Let's start the competition.
My money's on Gabe.
Yeah, mine too. Is he still here?
Says he's here, but he hasn't said anything, so I doubt he is.
Yeah. He's just vibing. Like me. The Wii music hits different.
You know what actually kind of slapped? The Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 music. That was so fucking masterpiece. Or Nintendogs. I'm your husband.
What? What have y'all been up to?
Yeah, me and Bromy and Murray. Apparently. Yeah, because he's right about everything. That's why.
Oh, yeah. You know what? You know what song slaps?
Hmm.
Rhythm Thief Louvre Museum Invasion. That hang on, I can send the link. This one
Alright, let's
slaps.
go.
It is fantastic.
Oh, the bass.
Yeah.
Oh, it's this. I didn't recognize it until like 40 seconds in.
You know the cursed version?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
And it's
never heard
perhaps
the
one of
like
the
actual version.
yeah. It's probably the best remix ever made, the cursed version.
I'm gonna have to listen to the cursed version again.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing right now. Wait, oh, the sentence only now makes sense in my head of I forgot Mia is my husband.
Huh? Wait, whose husband am I now? Oh, I'm still okay.
No,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the chat. I only now realized he meant that you and the husband are similar. My brain is slow.
My brain's even slower because I didn't even get what you were saying the first time. Store music. What's the we store? Why did I say it like that? We store music. Yeah,
Just
for
went full
real.
American there. You do need to sleep, bro. I need my feedback is what I need. Then I'll sleep. No, then I'll have a late night snack and then I'll sleep.
Oh, I want a late night snack.
No, I'm lying. I'm gonna binge watch Arcane.
Please tell me you've like
No,
seen it
no.
before.
Oh yeah, I've seen it multiple
Okay,
times.
okay. I was about to be like a little bit concerned. I remember like watching it and being like, damn, I need a game based on this, but like one that isn't League. No offense to League players, but
Oh man, quitting League is the greatest decision I've ever made in my life. Don't play League, please. Don't do it. Don't do it to
why
yourself.
would you do? Why would you do that to yourself?
You need a little bit of toxicity in your life.
It's like there's plenty of games. You don't have to do that to yourself. There are so many toxic games out there.
Yes, exactly that. I mean, pretty much all of them. So
Yeah.
With that phone.
I love how you
That's
put like any
amazing.
group of people together and it's like instant devolves into toxic chaos.
oh yeah, I love it so much. It's so fun.
People suck. I love how angry they get over like nothing, like completely inconsequential shit.
My favorite thing is so with us Dutch people, we're a bit weird, where we show our affection to others by just bullying the shit out of them. The more a Dutch person bullies you, the more they like you. So when I get together with like a group of friends and we start playing games, it devolves so hard. It's so much fun.
Dude, like Dutch people are the nicest until you get vicious, and then it's like, damn, where did this come from? But you're still doing it with a smile. Like, why
Yes.
do you do that? It's so confusing. I'm like, am I
We
being
find it
yelled
funny.
at here? Because you sound really nice, but like, what deep?
Yeah, no, we're confusing people. We're like, let's call it unique. Now, if someone's making fun of you with the smile on their face, there's no maliciousness in it whatsoever. It means
See,
they
in
like
the
you.
UK, you are like they are. They're being mean. They mean it. The weirdest one is I'm half Norwegian, and then like sometimes Norwegian people can be like super super cold to you, but they're very very kind. So it's like the opposite. Like they'll be like stony faced and like, "Good, I hate everything about this moment," and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, do you want me to do your groceries?" And I'll go and say like, "I'll go and like visit your sick mother," and like, but they'll say like deadpan, like they hate you.
Yeah. Scandinavians hit different.
Scandinavians is something else.
I studied with a few of them. They are, yeah, that's the one really fun thing about my study. It was international, so a whole bunch of people came.
Oh,
It also
international
caused a
study
lot
is
of
the best.
conflicts, especially between us Dutchies and the foreigners, because of how unique we are as a culture.
You special people.
Very special people. Yeah, no, so many fights over what just ended up being nothing because people thought they were being insulted and stuff.
And you're like, it's not that deep.
Yeah.
When people come to the UK, it's just like, why do you guys drink so much? That's all we get.
My internet's finally come back, but let's get the okay.
Yeah,
So
should
I guess
we?
we just no feedback for us. Sad.
But you know what? We'll get it. We'll get it one day.
Yeah, one day. I'll get my first feedback session 3 weeks into the course.
I might have caught up on my homework by then.
It's true. I sort of done half of like the first week and second week assignments, just what I thought was most useful.
Yeah, I like rushed through mine today because I've had like a hell week with commissions and shit, and I took all of
commissions.
So I might take it down sneakily and repost it a bit nicer. You guys didn't see shit.
I didn't hear anything.
Mm-mm.
No,
I'm trying to do it
my
all,
stuff's
but I'm
very
so
messy,
slow.
but
It's taking me 2. Yeah, go ahead, man.
No, what did you say?
I said I'm trying to do all the levels and like all the amount, but I'm so slow. It's taking me forever.
Yeah, same. When I started, a single silhouette, I'm Goblin, the feedback. If you go to my silhouettes, the first one took me like 30 to 40 minutes. Because I was so painstaking. It has to be exactly right. And
that's it.
I was so confused for a second. I thought you just like threw, I'm a goblin, by the way, in the middle of that for no reason.
I mean, I am, but that's also my online username.
Goblin.
I think for the level 2 ones, combined with the my gesture and the like the blocky boys, that was about like 20 minutes. But that's me rushing. Like I'm like pushing myself.
That's fast as shit. Yeah, the range of motion stuff, that took me like 2 full days. Just because
yeah, I bet.
I was trying to sort of mimic James's style where he has a lot of like sharp edges and stuff, which the little bit of experience I have, it was where they basically, if you did that, they would kick your ass. So I was I had to try really hard not to make everything smooth curves and stuff and super gestural.
With the pen, I have trouble with the curves, so most of my stuff turns out to be straight lines, and then I have to go back and curve it later.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm sort of I need to find an in-between between these curves, and I think I'm getting somewhere with my like more organic mannequins and stuff, but yeah, I need to do a lot more practice.
Yeah, same here. I'm getting better with the blocks, but the organic stuff is where everything falls apart because I'm trying to add like curves and such to it, and
yeah,
the structure all falls apart.
Yeah, for me, I think shape design is my biggest struggle, just because when I think about shape and everything else, it's just doesn't work. But that all comes with experience, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm having
feel
fun
like
though.
it's so fun, isn't it? Like deconstructing everything you've already learned and being like, oh shit, okay, I don't have to do this.
Yeah.
It's kind of like eye-opening. Because everything about figure drawing that you're ever told is like, you have to do this, you have to be perfect, you have to be precise. And James is like, fuck it, just have fun, just make cool things. And you're like, oh, that makes way more sense. But in this context, at least.
I also spent a long time being like really accurate with pens and fine liners and stuff, straight lines, no do-overs, but it's really refreshing. Just draw, be loose, be messy.
That's how you just end up hating what you're doing, though, if you're just like constantly
yeah.
striving to.
That's why I wound up going a technical art route and not a drawing route. Because I thought all drawing was just that painstaking work.
I don't think like people understand the options in art careers that are available to them sometimes, especially like when you're younger, because your art teachers are like, you have to do all this like Egon Schiele bullshit, and like you have to like copy his style exactly. And I'm like, I fucking hate Egon Schiele. I'm sorry, I'm gonna say it. I fucking hate him. Stresses me out. Don't like his art. I get it, but like, I'm sorry. It's just
Yeah.
like I had 3 years of just just studying fucking Egon Schiele every
I've
single
never heard that
year of
name
my
before.
life. Oh, he pisses me off. Sorry. He's.
Let's see.
I don't
Oh,
know
I
how.
don't like that. I
It's
instantly see what you mean.
fucking shit. Hate it. Makes
I
me feel
do.
ill.
I do not like that. Yeah, it does.
This is James Clasker. James Clast. Yeah. So that's why I didn't study art at university.
Yeah.
And obviously the whole like you can't draw anime, you'll never have a career drawing anime. Fucking fast forward to every bitch with a like Patreon.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Patreon has changed a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It just lets. I like that it lets artists just do whatever the fuck they want, not what other people tell them to do.
Exactly, because like the art that you want to do tends to be art that other people want to see, just because it's like something that you like, not something that you feel like you should do.
Yeah. Anyway, I think I should go because my dad's asleep in the room next to me.
Yeah, it's very, very late. But it's been
And
fun
Yeah,
talking to
I
you
gotta
guys.
go too.
Yeah, I gotta
I
bounce
should chill
too.
on a PC sometimes.
Good class. Sorry for kicking him out.
Yeah.
It's all good. You broke in with the traditional.
How dare you draw with a pen, man? I can't believe it.
Oh man.
All right. See you guys.
All right,
Okay,
see
see
you
you.
guys next week.
Bye bye.
Bye.
I have just returned. Are you still recording?